Hello there, and welcome to the sleepy sky. I'm glad you're here, arriving at the edge of night, with whatever the day has left in your hands. Some days feel heavy in quiet ways, like damp air clinging to the skin or a soft ache behind the eyes, and some days are simply full, crowded with small tasks that ask for your attention again and again until your thoughts begin to feel a little too bright. Tonight, you don't have to carry any of that. Tonight, we'll drift gently into the ocean and into the calm science that lives there, the kind that arrives slowly, like water touching shore. These will not be a lecture, and it will not be a test. It will be a quiet conversation, told at the pace of deep water. If you notice your mind wandering, that is fine. If you notice your body loosening, that is even better. Take one slow breath, as if you're breathing out a long day, and then another. Let your shoulders settle. Let your jaw soften. Let your hands become still. Tonight is allowed to be simple. Let's begin. The ocean is already resting somewhere beyond the windows and streets, beyond the warmth of rooms. Even if you cannot see it, it is there, dark and patient, a wide presence under the same sky that watches over you now. In the daytime it sparkles, and at night it turns quiet, holding the last light like a memory that doesn't need to be spoken. And the ocean has always been like that. Ancient, steady, willing to wait. One small fact can settle in early, like a pebble sinking without sound. The ocean regulates temperature by absorbing heat and releasing it gradually. Water holds warmth longer than land does, and it shares that warmth slowly, smoothing the sharp edges of climate. It doesn't rush, it doesn't spike. It leans toward balance, soft and steady, like a hand resting over a heartbeat. Soft and steady, like a hand resting over a heartbeat, the ocean has helped the planet avoid extremes for billions of years. When sunlight pours down, the surface drinks it in. When night arrives, the ocean gives a little back, not all at once, but in a measured exhale. The air above it cools gently. The wind loosens its grip. The world becomes less sharp. If you imagine standing by the sea at night, you can almost feel that exchange. The salt air is cool and clean. There is a faint dampness on your lips and a soft grit on your fingertips if you touch the railing or the rock or the driftwood worn smooth. Somewhere out there is a low hush, not silence exactly, but the sound of water holding itself together, a slow pulse, a calm rhythm, a long, slow rhythm. There is comfort in a rhythm that does not demand attention. Waves do not ask you to keep up. They arrive, they fold, they release. And even when you cannot hear them, the ocean continues its quiet motion. A living presence that understands how to move without urgency. Let your breathing borrow that lesson. Let it be slow and kind. Let it be enough. You can let yourself sink a little deeper into the idea that the ocean is not just a place, but a process. A vast system that holds heat, carries salt, shapes clouds, and offers the planet a kind of patience. Under moonlight, the surface looks smooth from far away, but up close it is always shifting, always rearranging itself in small ways. The ocean is motion that feels like rest. And it has been a cradle too. Long ago, life began in water, and there is a gentleness to that beginning. Not a dramatic spark, not a sudden change, but chemistry that found a way to stay together. In the early ocean, minerals dissolved and drifted. Heat rose from cracks in the seafloor. Molecules bumped into one another, separated, and met again, over and over, in countless combinations. Some arrangements fell apart quickly, some held for a little longer, and in that slow experiment guided by time more than force, certain patterns learned to last. A second small fact, offered quietly, can rest beside the first. Water is an unusually good solvent, and it helps molecules move, meet, and react. It also buffers change, softening swings in temperature and chemistry. In water, the environment can be stable enough for delicate structures to form and stable enough for them to persist. Life needed steadiness. The ocean offered steadiness. If your thoughts are still active, you don't need to push them away. Let them float. Let them drift. Like pale seaweed in a tide that knows where it's going. You don't have to steer. You can simply rest your attention on the image of those early seas, tinted green-blue under a young sun with faint chemical hums beneath the surface, a quiet fizz of reactions too small to see. The water would have been warm in places and cold in others. The surface would have shivered under wind. The deep would have remained dark and calm is allowed here. You are allowed to be calm. There is something soothing about imagining time in that scale. Not minutes, not hours, but ages. The ocean has watched continents rearrange themselves like slow clouds. It has watched mountains rise and then wear down, grain by grain, until the sand returns to the shore. It has watched ice come and go, white and silent, then melt into the same water that holds it now. White and silent, then melt into the same water that holds it now. The ice reminds us of the ocean's gentler strength. It can hold enormous change without panic. It can shift, adapt, and continue. It is wide enough to take what arrives, and deep enough to soften what feels sharp. That depth is not only physical, it is also a kind of quiet intelligence, not intelligence like a mind, not thought like a sentence, but intelligence as response. The ocean responds to the sun, the wind, the pull of the moon. It responds to rivers pouring in, to rain tapping the surface, to salt left behind by evaporation. It adjusts slowly, like a sleeping body turning to find a more comfortable position. And this is where the science becomes tender. The ocean's steadiness is not passive. It is active in a quiet way. It absorbs heat. It spreads it. It stores it. It releases it. It moves nutrients from one place to another. It carries oxygen into its upper layers, where small drifting organisms breathe and feed and multiply. It holds carbon in forms that can last for centuries, not as a punishment, but as part of a balancing act that has been unfolding since long before human eyes were here to witness it. You might picture the surface now, dark as ink, with a soft silver seam where moonlight touches it, a seam of light. Beneath that seam, the water is layered. Warmer water near the top, cooler below, and deeper still, colder and heavier, moving at a pace that feels almost like stillness. Pressure increases gently with depth, like a steady hand pressing down, not harshly but firmly, reminding everything below to settle, everything below to settle. And as everything settles, the mind can settle too. You can let your attention drift away from sharp edges. You can let your thoughts become rounder, softer, less urgent. If something needs solving, it can wait. The ocean has waited for eons. You can wait for one night. Here is a simple reassurance to keep close, like a warm blanket that doesn't weigh you down. Nothing is required of you right now. You can let yourself be held by the story, the way water holds a floating leaf. The ocean holds so much, and it does it quietly. It holds the memory of storms in the shape of coastlines. It holds the imprint of seasons in its temperature, warm and cool bands that shift slowly across the globe. It holds the paths of currents like invisible roads, and it holds the lives of creatures that rarely see daylight. But for tonight, we don't need to chase those details yet. Tonight, we only need to feel the ocean as a gentle beginning. Because beginnings are not only behind us, the ocean is still beginning things now. Every wave that lifts and falls is a beginning of motion. Every tide that slides over sand is a beginning of change. Every droplet that evaporates is a beginning of a cloud. Every cloud that releases rain is a beginning of a river. And every river returning to the sea is a beginning again, soft and endless, slow and steady. Soft and endless, slow and steady. The cycle continues without hurry. And there is a kind of peace in that. The planet does not need constant pushing. It does not need frantic effort. It needs rhythm. It needs return. It needs systems that know how to pause. The ocean knows how to pause even while it moves. Sometimes the most restful thing is to imagine the sea from far above, as if you're looking down through a break in clouds. You see a dark expanse, almost black with subtle variations, deep blue here, charcoal there, and along the edges, faint pale ribbons where waves brush the shore. You see nothing that demands an answer. You see only a presence, wide and quiet. And if you bring your attention closer, you notice the surface again, textured like silk under low light. The wind draws small patterns across it, and then lets them fade. The patterns fade. The surface smooths. The ocean continues. The patterns fade, and as the patterns fade, you might notice how your own body does something similar. It holds the day, and then it begins to let it go. It releases heat slowly. It softens tension gradually. The nervous system, like the ocean, prefers balance over speed. It will take what it needs, and then it will begin to settle. Inside you, there are oceans too, not vast and open, but present. Water in blood, in cells, in tissues. Water carrying salts and nutrients. Water keeping temperature steady. Water offering a medium where chemistry can unfold. Even at rest, the body is a quiet sea, where small processes move gently in the dark. It can be comforting to remember that you're not separate from the story. You're made of the same patient materials. You carry ancient rhythms. You're built to repair in stillness. You're built to restore in calm. If you feel yourself drifting towards sleep, let that happen. If you feel yourself awake, let that be gentle too. Either way, the ocean does not judge the surface. It simply continues. A faint sound can come into focus now, imagined or real. The low hum of distant traffic softened by walls, the whisper of air through a vent, the quiet tick of something small. Let it all become part of the background, like wind over water, present but not demanding. The background becomes kind, the background becomes calm, and in this calm we can hold one more quiet truth. The ocean's preference for balance is not just poetic, it is physical. Heat capacity, salinity, density, evaporation and circulation all weave together to moderate Earth's climate. The result is a planet that can support life, not through force, but through steadiness. Life does not need constant extremes. Life needs a place where change happens slowly enough to adapt. Change happens slowly enough to adapt, and as change happens slowly, rest becomes part of adaptation. The ocean rests in its own way, and in doing so it supports the rest of the world. It cools the air. It moistens it. It feeds clouds. It shapes rain. It cradles shorelines. It gives living things a place to begin, again and again, in small quiet ways. Let your breath be one of those small quiet ways. A slow inhale, a softer exhale. No need to hold, no need to force. The body knows the pattern. Here is another gentle anchor, offered without pressure. You can loosen your grip on the day. You can let the night carry you. Now, imagine the ocean as a great dark bowl under the sky, holding warmth in its depths. Imagine the surface as a thin skin, always shifting, always responding, never breaking. Imagine the deep as a quiet interior, where pressure creates stillness, and stillness creates patience. In that interior, early life learned to persist. In that interior, chemistry became biology, not quickly, but carefully. Carefully, not quickly. And as it happened, the ocean continued to breathe in its own way. Not with lungs, not with a chest rising and falling, but with exchanges. Heat exchanged, gases exchanged, water exchanged between sea and sky. A slow planetary breath. And tonight, you can borrow that breath. You can let the rhythm of the ocean become the rhythm of your mind. Thoughts can come and go like small ripples. Feelings can rise and fall like gentle swells. Nothing needs to crash. Nothing needs to be sharp. The ocean does not rush. The ocean does not strain. It moves, and it rests within its movement. It holds what it holds. It releases what it releases. It remains. So, let this first chapter be like standing at the shoreline in darkness, hearing the hush, feeling the cool salt air, noticing the faint shine where moonlight touches water. Let it be enough to know that the ocean has always been a stabilizer, a cradle, a keeper of gentle balance. Let it be enough to know that life began quietly, and it continues quietly, and you are allowed to be quiet too. The night listens, the body softens, the mind can drift. Stillness is where life learns to continue, and as the surface settles, we drift downward into the calm intelligence moving beneath. The ocean does not move at random. Even when its surface looks restless, even when waves scatter light and shadow, there is a deeper rhythm guiding everything beneath. This rhythm is ancient, dependable, and so steady that life learned long ago how to lean into it. Tides are one of the ocean's quiet intelligences. They rise and fall not because the sea chooses to, but because it responds, gently and predictably, to forces far away. The moon, moving silently through space, draws the ocean toward it. The sun adds its own influence, subtle but constant. Together, they create a slow lifting and lowering of water across the planet, a rhythm that repeats whether anyone is watching or not. This can be held as a small scientific truth, placed carefully into the mind. Tides are driven by gravity, and gravity does not rush. It pulls patiently, evenly, without demand. The result is movement that feels almost like breathing. In, out, advance, retreat. A rhythm that doesn't need correction. Along coastlines, this rhythm becomes visible. Water eases its way up beaches and rocks, covering what was dry moments before. Then, just as calmly, it draws back, leaving behind glistening sand and smooth stones. Nothing snaps, nothing strains. The sea arrives, and the sea returns. Arrives, and the sea returns, and in that repetition there is reassurance, something dependable, something that comes back without being called. If you imagine standing near the shore now, perhaps at night, the sound of the tide is softer than during the day. The rush of people is gone. The water moves with a quieter voice. You might hear a gentle shushing as waves slide forward, then a faint hiss as they slip away. The air smells faintly of salt and minerals. The ground beneath your feet feels cool and firm. There is no need to watch closely. The tide does not need supervision. Life along the shore has learned to trust this rhythm completely. Small creatures burrow into sand when the water retreats, waiting patiently for its return. Others cling to rocks, holding just enough moisture to last until the next rise. Shells close, bodies slow, everything knows the pattern, not as a thought, but as a felt sense. This knowing is passed down through generations, built into form and behavior. It is not memorized, it is embodied. You can let that idea settle gently. Some rhythms do not need to be remembered consciously. They live deeper than thought. As tides move, they do more than lift water. They carry nutrients back and forth, refreshing coastal waters, preventing stagnation. They mix oxygen into shallow zones. They redistribute heat along shorelines. This movement supports life without drawing attention to itself. It is service performed quietly, like so many stabilizing processes on Earth. Farther from shore, tides still work, though they are less obvious. The entire ocean rises and falls, subtly reshaping pressure and flow. In deep channels and narrow straits, tides create slow currents that pulse back and forth, polishing stone, shaping seafloor, and guiding migrating animals along invisible pathways. Animals, too, synchronize themselves with these movements. Crabs emerge when tides retreat. Fish move with incoming water to access feeding grounds. Birds time their foraging to exposed flats. Rest and activity follow the water's lead, not the clock's. This synchronization allows energy to be conserved. Why fight the tide when you can move with it? Another quiet reassurance can arrive here, like a marker along the path. You're allowed to move with what comes and goes. The moon continues its silent orbit, unconcerned with the lives it influences. It does not speed up or slow down to accommodate storms or calm. Its presence is constant, its pull gentle. The ocean responds in kind, lifting itself toward the sky, then settling back into its basin. Settling back into its basin, the ocean demonstrates something important. Movement does not mean disruption. Change does not mean loss of balance. The sea can shift its edges twice a day and remain whole. This idea can be held close now. You can move and still remain yourself. If attention drifts to your own body, you may notice rhythms there as well. Subtle ones, the rise and fall of breath, the pulse in wrists or neck, the slow shift of comfort as muscles release, then adjust. These are tides too, smaller, quieter, but guided by the same principle. Breath arrives, breath leaves. The body does not panic when one ends. It trusts the next. Trust is built from repetition. The ocean has had billions of years to practice. A faint sensory detail can float into awareness now. The coolness of air against the skin. The muted sound of water moving somewhere far away, perhaps only imagined. The darkness feels thick but gentle, like velvet. Another reassurance can settle softly. Nothing is being missed. As the chapter continues, the tide's influence widens. On a planetary scale, tidal friction gradually slows Earth's rotation, lengthening days by tiny amounts over immense spans of time. This happens so slowly it is almost poetic. The planet itself eases its pace, guided by the same steady pull. Ease its pace, guided by the same steady pull, and the thought itself begins to slow. Time stretches, urgency thins. Tides remind us that repetition is not boredom, it is reliability. The same motion, Repeated becomes a foundation upon which life can rest. Without tides, coastlines would stagnate. Nutrients would settle unevenly. Many ecosystems would struggle to find balance. Balance is the quiet goal behind all this motion. If wakefulness lingers, let it linger without tension. The tide does not rush back to shore, it arrives when it arrives. You can trust the timing. The ocean does not question gravity. It does not resist the moon. It responds, and in responding, it creates patterns that feel safe enough for life to build itself around them. Coral reefs, tidal marshes, mangrove forests, all of them exist because water moves predictably in and out day after day. Predictably, in and out. And as this idea repeats, the mind can begin to mirror it. Thoughts come in. Thoughts move out. Space opens between them. Another soft reassurance drifts through, like a low tide revealing smooth ground beneath. You are doing enough by resting. Night deepens further now. The tide continues its work somewhere far away, unseen but dependable. The moon climbs higher or sinks lower. The ocean follows as it always has, as it always will. This is the slow intelligence of tides. Not cleverness, not planning, but response tuned perfectly to the world it inhabits. A lesson written in water, repeated without words, and as the steady pull continues, as water lifts and lowers without strain, the ocean carries us deeper, slower still, into the darker currents that remember warmth and time. What returns gently can be trusted. Beneath the surface motion of waves and tides, the ocean holds another layer of movement, slower and quieter, like breath drawn deep into the body. These are the currents, wide and patient rivers flowing within the sea, shaping the planet in ways that are rarely seen but always felt. A gentle scientific truth can rest here, placed carefully. Ocean currents redistribute heat around the Earth, preventing extremes of cold and warmth. They carry energy from places where it gathers to places where it is needed, smoothing the planet's temperature over long spans of time. Without these currents, climates would sharpen, seasons would grow harsher, balance would be harder to keep. The ocean, instead, chooses circulation. Near the surface, currents are warmed by sunlight. They drift across basins guided by wind and the slow turning of the earth. These waters glow faintly under daylight, blue-green and alive, holding heat like a memory pressed into skin. As they move, they release warmth into the air, softening winters, cooling summers, shaping weather far from where the heat was first absorbed. Farther down, beyond the reach of light, another system unfolds. Deep currents are driven not by wind, but by differences in temperature and salinity. Cold water sinks, salt-heavy water sinks. Together they slide downward into darkness, beginning journeys that can last centuries, moving without urgency. In these depths, water flows so slowly it can feel like stillness. Pressure is high, light is absent, sound is muted into a low, distant hum. The temperature remains nearly constant, just above freezing, stable and protective. Here, the ocean stores its memory. You can imagine this deep water now, dark and heavy, pressing gently against itself. The colour is not quite black, but a deep blue-grey that absorbs rather than reflects. Movement exists, but it is subtle, like the shifting of clouds too far away to track. Nothing here is rushed, nothing is sharp. A soft reassurance can settle into this image, like a weight placed gently on the chest. You can let yourself sink. These deep currents carry more than cold. They carry dissolved gases, minerals and traces of the world above. Carbon absorbed at the surface travels downward, held safely for long spans of time. Nutrients released from sinking organic matter are redistributed, eventually rising elsewhere to support new life. This is how the ocean remembers, not with stories, but with chemistry, not with images, but with slow movement that feels almost like rest. If attention drifts upward again, you might picture surface currents looping across the globe, forming vast gyres that turn slowly year after year. These loops are so wide they take decades to complete a single circuit. They gather water gently, holding it, guiding it, never forcing it. These patterns are shaped by the turning of the planet itself. As Earth spins, moving water is deflected, curving its path. The result is a choreography written by physics, graceful and unhurried. Graceful and unhurried, like the way thoughts can move when they are no longer pushed. Another reassurance can arrive here, quiet and brief. There is time. Life depends on these currents in subtle ways. Warm currents allow coral reefs to exist at higher latitudes than they otherwise could. Cold currents bring nutrients from deep water to the surface, feeding plankton that form the base of marine food webs. Fish migrate along these invisible highways. Whales follow them, generation after generation, guided by temperature and chemistry more than sight. Guided by temperature and chemistry more than sight, life learns to trust what it cannot see. Much of this work happens beyond awareness. People feel the effects as mild winters, cool coastal summers, or steady rainfall patterns, without ever sensing the deep water moving far below. The labour is hidden, but the outcome is gentle stability. A faint sensory detail can surface now. The imagined pressure of deep water, firm but not crushing. The absence of sound, replaced by a soft internal quiet. The feeling of being held from all sides. Another reassurance drifts in, like a low current passing beneath awareness. You're supported by processes you do not have to manage. Currents also move slowly enough to allow time itself to soften. A drop of water sinking in the North Atlantic may not return to the surface for hundreds or even thousands of years. During that time, continents shift slightly. Species rise and fall. Ice comes and goes. The water carries traces of each era, like layers in sediment. This layered movement teaches patience. It shows that not everything needs to resolve quickly to be meaningful. Some processes exist precisely because they take time. Time, here, is not pressure, it is space. As night deepens, the imagery of currents becomes simpler, less detail, more sensation. The idea of water sliding past water, slow and steady, guided by density rather than desire. Your own body mirrors this in small ways. Blood circulates, heat redistributes, energy moves from areas of excess to areas of need. These internal currents are quieter at rest, but they never stop. They continue their work whether you notice them or not. Another soft reassurance settles, warm and low. It's all right to let go. The ocean does not announce its deepest movements. It does not mark their progress with sound or light. It simply continues, carrying warmth from equator to pole, carrying cold back again, maintaining balance through exchange. Exchange without urgency. As the final moments of this chapter approach, the sense of depth grows. The surface feels farther away now. The deep feels closer. Thoughts grow heavier, slower, less defined. From this place, it becomes easier to trust unseen systems, to believe that what sustains us does not always need our attention. That rest does not stop movement. It changes its quality. The deepest work is rarely seen, and carried by these hidden paths, carried by water that remembers warmth and time, we sink further into the ocean's calm interior, where light fades and patience remains. As the currents carry us deeper, light becomes something rare. The blue-green shimmer of the surface fades, sunlight thins, then dissolves entirely, leaving the water dark and spacious, a place where vision is no longer the main sense guiding life. Here, the ocean does not feel empty, it feels held. In this darkness, another quiet truth waits. Many deep-sea organisms produce their own light through gentle chemical reactions inside their bodies. This light is called bioluminescence, and it is not loud, not bright, not meant to dazzle. It is soft, measured, and purposeful. Soft and purposeful, like a small lantern carried through fog. The chemistry behind this glow is simple and elegant. Molecules react, energy is released, light appears without heat, no flame, no burn, just a cool illumination that exists for a moment, then fades back into black water. It is one of the most efficient forms of light in nature, created without waste, without excess. You might imagine it now, a faint blue pulse drifting past, a slow green shimmer unfolding, then closing. The darkness around it does not resist. It receives the light, holds it gently, then allows it to disappear. Another reassurance can settle here, like a soft hand resting on your back. You don't have to shine to be present. In the deep ocean, light has meaning. It can signal to others. It can confuse predators. It can attract mates or prey. But it is never frantic. The glow is controlled, released only when needed. Darkness remains the default state, calm and protective. Protective darkness, where sharp edges are hidden. Many of these glowing creatures move slowly. Jellyfish pulse with long pauses between movements. Comb jellies drift, their cilia scattering faint rainbows that fade almost as soon as they appear. Tiny plankton flash briefly when disturbed, like stars blinking awake, then returning to sleep. Blinking awake, then returning to sleep, the pattern repeats without urgency. If you imagine floating here, surrounded by deep water, the sensation is not fear but quiet. Pressure presses evenly from all sides, firm but stable. Sound is reduced to distant, low vibrations, barely noticeable. The temperature is steady. Nothing surprises you. A sensory detail drifts into focus. The colour is deep indigo. The texture is smooth and dense. The sound is almost nothing at all. Another reassurance arrives, simple and calm. This darkness is safe. Bioluminescence also reminds us that communication does not need volume. In a place where shouting would be useless, light whispers. Signals are brief. Meanings are shared with minimal effort. Life adapts not by becoming louder, but by becoming subtler. This idea can rest gently in the mind. Subtlety is strength in the right environment. Even bacteria glow in the dark ocean. Entire communities of microscopic life produce faint light together, creating soft halos in the water. This collective glow is not coordinated by a leader. It emerges naturally when enough individuals are present. The result is shared illumination, calm and steady. Shared illumination, calm and steady, like a thought that feels comforting without needing explanation. As the glow fades again, darkness returns, unbroken. Darkness here is not absence, it is space. It allows energy to be conserved, it reduces stimulation, it creates conditions where rest can exist even while life continues. Your own body understands this instinctively. When light lowers, internal chemistry shifts. Alertness softens, muscles release. The nervous system eases into quieter modes of operation. Darkness invites repair. Another reassurance drifts through. Like a slow exhale, it's okay to dim. Deep-sea creatures often have eyes adapted to this faint light, sensitive enough to notice the smallest glow. Others have no eyes at all. They rely on touch, pressure, and chemical signals instead. Sight becomes optional. Presence remains, presence without constant awareness. This chapter moves gently toward stillness now. The images simplify. Fewer flashes, longer stretches of dark water. The occasional glow appears, then disappears, like a thought forming and dissolving before it fully takes shape. You do not need to follow it. In the deepest parts of the ocean, bioluminescence becomes rare. Darkness dominates completely. And yet life persists, calm and unhurried, sustained by slow chemistry and patient adaptation. This teaches something quiet and kind. Even where light does not reach, life finds a way to continue without struggle. It does not demand brightness. It doesn't demand attention. It simply is. Another gentle reassurance settles, like a final pulse of light fading into dark. You are allowed to rest in the quiet. As the last glow softens and vanishes, the ocean feels even larger, even calmer. Darkness wraps everything evenly, smoothing differences, holding motion in check. And in this dark, something important becomes clear. Light does not define life. Balance does. Even darkness holds its own kind of light. And as the glow fades softly, we continue downward into quieter depths, where patience deepens and stillness becomes complete. Coral reefs do not announce themselves quickly. They do not rise in a single lifetime, and they do not rush to be noticed. They grow the way patience grows, layer by layer, moment by moment, without any need to hurry. In warm, shallow water where sunlight softens as it travels downward, tiny coral animals begin their slow work, building homes that will one day shelter entire worlds. A gentle scientific truth can settle here, placed carefully at the start. Coral reefs are formed by countless small coral polyps, each one secreting a thin layer of calcium carbonate, building outward and upward over hundreds and thousands of years. No single coral creates a reef. It is always a collective effort, guided by time rather than force. Time rather than force, and that distinction matters. If you imagine drifting above a reef now, the water around you feels warm and calm. Light filters down in soft bands, breaking into pale gold and muted turquoise. Sound is muffled, as if the world has wrapped itself in fabric. The reef below is textured and alive, yet nothing moves quickly. Fish glide rather than dart. Plants sway rather than snap. Everything seems to understand the value of conserving energy. A soft reassurance can arrive here, like a familiar thought returning. You do not need to rush. Coral itself appears still, almost stone-like, but it is very much alive. Each polyp extends tiny tentacles to gather food, then withdraws them again, repeating this motion countless times across the reef. Inside the coral's tissue live microscopic algae, partners in a quiet exchange. The algae use sunlight to produce energy. The coral provides shelter and nutrients in return. This partnership is gentle and precise. Neither organism dominates, neither wastes effort. Together they create something stronger than either could alone. Stronger than either could alone, and yet built from softness. Reefs grow in places where conditions are just right. Water must be warm, but not too warm. Clear, but not empty of nutrients. Shallow enough for light, but deep enough to remain stable. When conditions shift too quickly, reefs struggle. When change arrives slowly, reefs adapt. Adaptation here is not dramatic. It is incremental, a slight adjustment in growth, a subtle change in chemistry, a pause when stress increases. Coral does not fight the ocean, it listens. Listening is a form of intelligence. As you continue to drift, the shapes of the reef begin to feel architectural. Branching corals reach upward like quiet trees. Rounded formations resemble low hills. Crevices and caves offer shadow and shelter. This structure creates countless small environments, each with its own light, temperature, and flow. Fish weave through these spaces with ease, their movements slow and economical. Bright colours appear briefly, then fade as bodies turn and light shifts. A parrotfish scrapes gently at rock, releasing fine white sand that drifts downward like snow. A sea turtle rests under an overhang, barely moving, letting the water support its weight. Barely moving, letting the water support its weight, the image invites stillness. Another reassurance can settle softly. It's all right to be held. Coral reefs are often called rainforests of the sea, not because they are crowded or loud, but because they support such a wide variety of life. Yet even here, abundance does not mean chaos. Each species occupies its place, shaped by long relationships and shared boundaries. Predators hunt efficiently, not wastefully. Herbivores keep growth in balance. Decomposers recycle what is no longer needed. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is done twice without reason. This balance is delicate, but not fragile when given time. A faint sensory detail can surface now, the gentle clicking of shrimp, the low, constant murmur of water moving through coral branches, the feeling of warmth pressing lightly against skin. Another reassurance drifts through, like a pause between breaths. You can soften here. Reefs also protect coastlines. By absorbing the energy of waves, they reduce erosion and soften storms before they touch land. This service is quiet and constant. The reef does not know it is protecting anything. It simply exists in a way that benefits others, without effort. This is another lesson reefs offer. Strength does not need to be rigid. Protection does not need to be aggressive. Sometimes being present and layered is enough. As night approaches above the water, reefs begin to change their rhythm. Some corals extend, feed in tentacles. Nocturnal creatures emerge from hiding. The colours shift, becoming deeper, more subdued. The reef remains active, but its tone lowers, matching the night. Lowering its tone, matching the night, the reef becomes even more peaceful. Inside the reef, chemical signals guide these changes. Light-sensitive proteins adjust behaviour. Internal clocks respond to darkness. The transition is smooth, not abrupt. There is no alarm announcing nightfall. The system simply responds. Your body understands this kind of transition too. As light fades, chemistry shifts, muscles loosen, attention narrows. The nervous system moves toward repair. Another reassurance settles gently. Nothing needs to be forced. Coral reefs remind us that building something lasting often means building slowly, layer upon layer, day after day, with pauses, with rest, with responsiveness to conditions. They also remind us that beauty does not need speed. The most intricate patterns on a reef are the result of time, not urgency. Curves form because growth followed available space. Colours deepen because light changed gradually. Complexity emerges because patience allowed it to, and now it simply exists. As this chapter begins to ease towards stillness, the imagery grows simpler. Fewer fish, less motion. The reef becomes a quiet silhouette beneath dimming light. Water continues to move, but gently, like breath during sleep. A final reassurance can rest here, warm and steady. You're allowed to slow down. The reef remains, even when unseen. It continues its quiet work through the night, supporting life, shaping water, holding energy in balance. It does not worry about tomorrow. It does not review yesterday. It grows when it can, and it rests when it must. What is built slowly tends to last. And from these living structures, from this patient architecture shaped by time and cooperation, the ocean opens wider once more, inviting us onward into deeper memory and gentler motion. Beyond reefs and sunlight, beyond even the slow drift of visible life, the ocean becomes something heavier and quieter. Here depth begins to feel like time itself. Water darkens, motion slows, and the sea takes on another role, one it has held patiently for millions of years, the role of memory. A gentle scientific truth settles early, without weight. The oceans absorb much of Earth's excess heat and carbon dioxide, storing them slowly, releasing them slowly, shaping climate across centuries. Water has an extraordinary capacity to remember conditions long after they have passed, not as stories but as layers, layers of warmth, layers of cold, layers of chemistry. If you imagine sinking now, deeper than coral reefs, deeper than drifting fish, the water around you grows dense and calm. Light fades into deep blue, then into something darker, softer. The pressure increases evenly, like a steady embrace. Nothing presses sharply. Everything feels supported and quiet. In these depths, water masses form that will not see the surface again for hundreds, sometimes thousands of years. They move so slowly they are measured not in days or seasons, but in generations. A parcel of water sinking in the North Atlantic may travel the globe before rising again, carrying with it the temperature and chemistry of a distant past. This is how the ocean remembers. It remembers warm eras and cool ones. It remembers volcanic ash dissolved long ago. It remembers the breath of ancient forests, carried downward as carbon and held safely, patiently. The memory is not emotional. It is stabilizing like a deep breath held gently, not strained. A soft reassurance can arrive here, low and steady. There is no need to hurry. The ocean's memory works because water changes slowly. Heat moves through it with care. Chemical reactions unfold at a measured pace. Sudden swings are softened. Sharp edges are rounded off. This buffering allows the planet to remain livable even as conditions shift over long spans of time. On land, temperature can rise and fall quickly. In the ocean, change is absorbed, diluted, shared. A warm summer does not vanish overnight. A cold winter does not bite all the way through. Water holds on to what it receives, then releases it gently, over time. You might imagine deep basins now, vast and still, shaped like bowls beneath continents. The water within them barely moves, yet it is not stagnant. Slow currents pass through, guided by differences in density so subtle they feel almost like intention. Colder water slides beneath warmer layers. Saltier water sinks beneath fresher. Each adjustment is small. Together they create stability. A sensory detail drifts in. The imagined temperature is cool but not cold. The sound is a distant low hum, almost felt rather than heard. The colour is deep slate blue, absorbing thought. Another reassurance settles, like a quiet weight. You are allowed to rest into this depth. The ocean's long memory also protects life above. By absorbing heat, the sea prevents sudden atmospheric warming. By taking in carbon dioxide, it slows the pace of chemical change in the air. These actions are not conscious. They are physical responses built into water itself. Water does not judge what it absorbs, it simply holds. Holding can be an act of care. Within the ocean, carbon becomes part of a larger cycle. It dissolves, reacts, forms new compounds. Some sinks as tiny particles drifting slowly downward like snow. Some is carried into shells and skeletons, locked into solid form. Some remains dissolved, travelling with deep currents for centuries. This storage is not permanent, it is patient. Eventually, much of what is held will return to the surface, release slowly, rejoining the atmosphere when conditions allow. The cycle continues, smooth and unbroken, like breath in sleep. Your own body carries memory in similar ways. Muscles remember patterns, cells remember stress and recovery. Heat lingers beneath skin. Chemistry shifts gradually, not instantly. At rest, these memories soften, integrating into a calmer whole. Another reassurance drifts through, like a soft exhale. It's safe to let the day settle. The ocean's memory also exists in its layers. Scientists can trace past climates by reading temperature gradients and chemical signatures locked into deep water. These records are not written in words, but they are precise. They tell stories of ice ages, warming periods, and long stretches of relative calm. Stories told without sound. As night deepens above, the deep ocean remains unchanged. Day and night do not reach here. Storms do not disturb these layers. Waves fade long before this depth. The environment is steady, predictable, and quiet. This steadiness is not emptiness. It is fullness without noise. A gentle sensory cue appears, the feeling of being suspended, neither rising nor sinking, the sense of weight evenly distributed, the absence of urgency. Another reassurance settles gently. Nothing is being asked of you now. The ocean's long memory teaches a quiet lesson. Not everything must be processed immediately. Not every experience needs instant resolution. Some things can be held, softened by time, integrated gradually. Time is not pressure here. Time is permission. As this chapter moves towards stillness, the imagery becomes simpler still. Fewer layers, less motion. Just the sense of deep water holding its temperature, holding its chemistry, holding its balance. The ocean does not fear what it remembers. It carries it forward, adjusting slowly, never rushing to forget. In doing so, it allows life above to remain stable enough to rest, grow, and adapt. Another final reassurance rests here. Calm and steady. You can release control. As memory settles, as movement slows even more, the ocean becomes a place of quiet endurance, a vast interior where change happens gently, where nothing needs to be forced, where patience is the dominant force. What remembers gently does not overwhelm. And as memory settles, movement slows even more, guiding us onward toward creatures that have learned to rest while drifting, carried by water that knows how to wait. Out in the open ocean, far from reefs and shorelines, movement becomes something softer. There are no solid landmarks here, no places to brace against. Water stretches in every direction, and life adapts by learning how to move without effort, or, just as often, how to not move at all. A gentle scientific truth settles near the beginning. Many marine animals conserve energy by drifting, gliding, or reducing movement altogether. In a world where resistance is constant, stillness becomes an efficient strategy. Rest is not failure here, it is design. Design shaped by water, pressure, and time. If you imagine yourself floating in this open space, the sensation is weightless and calm. The water supports you evenly. There is no need to hold your body tense. Everything is carried. Light is softer here, filtered through layers above, turning the world into muted blues and greys. Sound is distant, blurred into a low, continuous hush. A soft reassurance can arrive now, quiet and kind. You don't have to hold yourself up. Many creatures of the open ocean spend much of their lives drifting. Jellyfish pulse slowly, then pause, letting currents do the rest. Their bodies are mostly water, flexible and forgiving, shaped to move with minimal effort. Between pulses they are nearly still, suspended in motion that belongs to the sea itself. Suspended in motion that belongs to the sea itself. The image invites a deeper calm. Fish, too, rest while moving. Some glide long distances with barely a flick of a fin, using body shape and buoyancy to reduce drag. Others enter states of reduced activity, hovering in place, their muscles relaxed, their metabolism lowered. They remain aware enough to respond if needed, but otherwise they save energy. This balance between readiness and rest is subtle. It does not require full alertness. It does not demand sleep in the human sense. It is a quiet middle ground. Another reassurance drifts in, like a slow current beneath awareness. It's okay to ease back. Some sharks must keep water moving over their gills to breathe, yet even they find ways to rest. They glide along currents, letting water flow naturally through their bodies. In these moments, muscles soften, energy use drops. The ocean itself becomes part of their breathing, and the boundary between body and environment thins. Whales offer another gentle example. These immense animals move with surprising economy. Their strokes are slow and deliberate, followed by long glides. When they rest, they often float near the surface or drift downward slightly, half of their brain remaining aware while the other half settles into deeper rest. This unihemispheric sleep allows them to breathe consciously, while still restoring themselves. Even rest here is adapted to the environment, shaped by necessity but softened by rhythm. A sensory detail drifts into focus, the sound of distant water movement, low and muffled, the visual impression of slow shadows passing beneath you, the feeling of being carried forward without effort. Another reassurance settles gently. You are allowed to be supported. Smaller creatures rest in different ways. Some fish tuck themselves into slow eddies where currents are weaker. Others align their bodies to reduce drag, barely moving at all. Plankton drift almost entirely at the mercy of water, rising and falling with daily cycles, expending energy only when necessary. At night, many of these organisms slow even further. Metabolism drops, feed-in pauses, repair begins. The ocean becomes a place of widespread distributed rest. Distributed rest spread across millions of bodies, all lowering their pace together. This collective slowing has effects beyond individual animals. When movement decreases, oxygen demand drops. Nutrient use shifts. The chemistry of water changes subtly, favouring balance. Even turbulence reduces slightly, allowing particles to settle and clarity to return. The ocean responds to rest the way a body does. Systems stabilize, extremes soften. Another gentle reassurance can arrive here, like a pause between thoughts. There's nothing you need to keep doing. Drifting is not passive, it is responsive. Animals adjust their buoyancy carefully, adding or releasing gases or oils to maintain position without effort. This fine control allows them to remain suspended at particular depths, where temperature and pressure feel right. This precision is quiet. It does not announce itself. It simply works. As you imagine this, the sense of effort continues to fade. The mind may begin to mirror what it observes. Thoughts slow, gaps widen, attention rests more than it reaches. A soft sensory cue appears, the texture of water imagined as smooth and dense, the colour deepening into a calm blue-black. The absence of sharp edges. Another reassurance drifts through, low and steady. You can let the current carry you. Some animals take drifting to its extreme. Portuguese man-o'-war float at the surface, their sail-like structures catching wind, moving wherever air and water decide. They do not steer, they adapt. Their rest is total surrender to the environment. Others, like sea turtles, alternate between gentle swimming and long periods of stillness, hovering or resting on the seafloor. Their heart rate slows. Their breathing becomes infrequent. Energy is conserved without tension, and that detail matters. Rest in the ocean is rarely absolute stillness. It is reduced effort. It is movement without strain. It is alignment with surrounding forces rather than resistance against them. Your own body understands this instinctively. When you stop trying to hold posture, muscles release. When you stop controlling breath, it finds its own rhythm. When attention softens, thoughts reorganize without instruction. Another reassurance settles in, warm and calm. You don't need to manage this moment. In the open sea, drifting also provides safety. Sudden movements attract attention. Stillness allows animals to blend into the water, reducing the chance of being noticed. Rest becomes a form of protection. Protection through calm. As night spreads across the surface far above, drifting animals respond collectively. Many descend slightly, following temperature gradients. Others rise to feed, but do so slowly, efficiently, without excess motion. The entire system lowers its intensity. Lowering its intensity, the ocean grows quieter. This quiet does not mean emptiness. Life continues, but at a pace that favours restoration. Cells repair. Energy stores replenish. Waste products are cleared gently. The same processes that occur during sleep on land unfold here, adapted to water. Another sensory detail drifts in. The imagined darkness feels thick but gentle. The pressure is constant. The sound is a deep hush, almost like silence. Another reassurance arrives, barely a whisper. It's safe to slow down. Creatures that rest while drifting remind us that effort is not always required to move forward. Sometimes, progress happens by allowing oneself to be carried. Sometimes, survival depends on knowing when to stop pushing. The ocean teaches this lesson repeatedly, without words. As this chapter begins to settle, the imagery grows simpler, fewer bodies, wider space. Movement slows to near stillness. The sense of being held by water becomes dominant, held without needing to hold back. From here, the ocean feels less like a place of activity and more like a field of calm, a vast environment where rest is not separate from life, but woven into it. Another final reassurance rests here, steady and kind. You're allowed to rest in motion. As movement fades further, as drifting becomes the primary state, the ocean itself grows quieter, preparing us for an even deeper hush. the sound or near silence of water holding itself still. Rest is another way of moving, and as movement fades, the ocean itself grows quieter, carrying us gently onward into the wide listening silence below. As movement softens even further, another sense comes forward, not loudly, not clearly, but gently. Sound, or rather, the way sound changes when there is very little of it. Beneath the ocean's surface, silence is never complete, yet it often feels whole, layered, and calm. A quiet, scientific truth settles here without effort. Sound travels farther and faster in water than it does in air, carried by density and pressure rather than wind. Yet in the deep ocean, where activity slows and space widens, sound becomes low and spread out, more like a distant presence than a clear signal. More like a presence than a signal, the ocean listens as much as it speaks. If you imagine yourself suspended now, drifting without effort, the sounds around you are not sharp. There is no sudden noise. Instead, there is a continuous low-frequency hum, created by water moving against water, by distant currents sliding past each other, by the planet itself in motion. This hum is not distracting, it is steady, predictable, almost comforting. A soft reassurance can arrive here, settling like a warm weight. You are held in quiet. Some sounds come from life itself, the faint clicks of shrimp too distant to locate, the low calls of whales travelling across entire basins, stretched and softened by miles of water. These sounds do not interrupt the stillness, they belong to it, the way breathing belongs to sleep. Much of the ocean, however, exists in long stretches of near silence. In the deep zones where few animals move and fewer still communicate through sound, the dominant noise is internal, water settling, pressure equalizing, molecules shifting slowly in response to temperature and depth. This is not silence as absence, it is silence as balance. A sensory detail drifts gently into awareness. The imagined sound is low and rounded like a distant wind heard through walls. The colour is dark blue, almost grey. The texture is smooth, dense and unbroken. Another reassurance settles softly. There is nothing to listen for. Sound in the ocean also fades with depth. Waves break at the surface, but their energy dissipates long before reaching the deep. Storms pass overhead without disturbing the water below. Even earthquakes, when felt, arrive as gentle vibrations rather than shocks. This separation creates a protected interior, a place where the outside world cannot intrude easily. Protected interiors are important for rest. Many marine animals rely on this quiet. Fish slow their movement when sound decreases. Sensitive species retreat to deeper or calmer zones during noisy periods. Rest becomes easier when stimulation lowers. Your own nervous system responds in similar ways. When sound softens, attention loosens. Muscles release tension. Thoughts stretch out, losing their edges. Another reassurance drifts in, brief and calm. You can relax into this. Some parts of the ocean are so quiet that scientists must use specialized instruments to detect motion at all. In these regions, even the smallest vibration stands out, yet most of the time there is nothing to notice. The water simply exists without needing commentary. As you continue to drift, the sense of sound fades even further. The hum becomes less distinct. Awareness widens. The mind may begin to wander, not actively but gently, like drifting plankton following currents without intent. A soft sensory cue appears. The absence of sharp sound feels like a blanket drawn up around the ears. The body feels insulated, buffered from sudden change. Another reassurance settles, steady and kind. You're safe in this stillness. In this near silence, the ocean performs some of its most important work. Chemical gradients equalize, fine particles settle, heat distributes slowly. Without turbulence, systems recalibrate. Stillness allows adjustment. This mirrors what happens during deep rest. When stimulation drops, the body shifts toward repair. Hormones balance, memory consolidates, tension releases without being asked to. The ocean does not force quiet. It allows it. Another gentle reassurance drifts through, like a pause between breaths. Nothing needs to be solved now. As the chapter eases forward, sound becomes more conceptual than sensory. The idea of quiet replaces any specific noise. The mind no longer tries to identify or interpret. It simply rests in the presence of minimal input. This is where many fall asleep. The ocean's quiet is not emptiness. It is fullness without demand. A space where systems can return to baseline, where energy is conserved, where life continues at its lowest necessary pace. Another sensory detail settles faintly. The imagined pressure feels even and constant. The temperature is cool and stable. The darkness is gentle. Another reassurance arrives, soft and brief. You can let go. In this hush, the distinction between body and water begins to blur. Movement feels unnecessary. Awareness narrows to sensation, then loosens further, becoming more like background than focus. This is the ocean holding itself still without effort. The water becomes a container for rest. As night spreads across the surface far above, the deep ocean remains unchanged. No light arrives, no new sound intrudes. The quiet deepens, not because anything stops, but because everything settles into its most efficient state. The deepest calm is not silence, it is balance. As this chapter comes to rest, the imagery simplifies almost completely. No creatures, no currents, just water, layered and quiet, listening to itself. Silence is full, not empty. And from this hush, from this wide quiet where sound dissolves into calm, the night ocean above begins to shape its own gentle rhythms, carrying us closer to the final descent into rest. Above the deep hush, night settles across the ocean's surface, not abruptly, but like a veil drawn slowly into place. The colour shifts first. Blues deepen into silver grey, reflections stretch longer, softer. The water releases the heat it held through the day, cooling by small degrees that matter to living things. A gentle scientific truth can rest here. At night, surface waters cool and many ocean systems slow their pace. Temperature differences soften, metabolism lowers. Energy is conserved across vast distances, not by command, but by response. Response is the ocean's language. If you imagine floating just beneath the surface now, the air above is quiet. Wind has eased. Waves smooth into longer, calmer lines. The water feels cooler against the skin, not cold, just steady. Light comes from the moon and stars, broken into pale streaks that drift and dissolve. A soft reassurance arrives, simple and grounding. This moment asks nothing. As darkness deepens, life adjusts. Many species begin a slow, collective movement known as vertical migration. Tiny organisms rise toward the surface to feed under cover of darkness, then descend again before dawn. Fish follow. Larger animals follow them. The movement is widespread, yet gentle, like a tide within the water column. Like a tide within the water column, the rhythm repeats each night. This migration is one of the largest movements of biomass on Earth, yet it happens quietly. No splashing, no urgency. Bodies rise and fall by a few hundred meters, guided by light levels rather than clocks. Darkness offers safety. Reduced visibility lowers risk. Energy use remains efficient. Another reassurance settles softly. You can move less now. Not all creatures rise. Many rest where they are. Some settle into crevices. Others hover, barely moving. Metabolism drops. Oxygen use slows. Repair begins. The night ocean becomes a distributed resting place, layered with different depths of calm. Layered calm spread gently through the water. A sensory detail drifts into awareness. The sound is a distant rhythmic lap against hull or shore. The colour is muted silver blue. The texture of the water feels smooth, almost velvety. Another reassurance arrives, quiet and brief. It's all right to be still. Predators also change their behaviour at night, but even hunting becomes measured. Movements are deliberate. Bursts of speed are rare. Energy is spent carefully. The ocean does not reward waste. This careful economy lowers the overall intensity of the system. With fewer sudden movements, the water itself grows calmer. Turbulence decreases. Particles settle. Visibility softens further. Softening further, the night deepens. Darkness in the ocean is not danger by default. It is shelter. Many species rely on it to survive. Reduced light means reduced exposure. The night holds life gently, allowing processes to continue without strain. Your own body recognizes this pattern. In darkness, alert systems power down. Hormones shift toward repair. Muscles release. The need to monitor surroundings fades. Another reassurance drifts in, warm and low. You're allowed to rest here. As hours pass, the ocean maintains this lowered state. The surface cools a little more. Currents continue, but subtly. The deep remains unchanged, steady and patient. The boundary between surface and depth softens, blending into a continuous field of calm. A faint sensory cue appears. The imagined air smells faintly of salt. The water carries a gentle chill. The soundscape narrows to a single, steady rhythm. Another reassurance settles gently. Nothing needs your attention. The night ocean teaches that darkness is not an ending. It is a condition that supports balance. It gives space for recovery. It allows systems to reset without interruption. This is true for water. It is true for bodies. As the chapter eases towards stillness, images simplify again. Fewer movements, fewer distinctions, just the sense of a vast surface resting under the sky, and a deep interior holding everything steady. Holding everything steady, the ocean becomes a quiet guardian of rest. The final moments soften even more. The night feels complete. The pace is low. The water is calm enough to reflect stars without breaking them apart. Darkness is a form of shelter. And now, with the journey nearly complete, with surface and depth aligned in quiet balance, everything begins to rest, preparing the way for a final return to stillness. The journey has carried you a long way tonight, through warmth and depth, through slow currents and quiet creatures, through sound that softened and darkness that sheltered. The ocean has shown itself not as something restless or wild, but as something deeply intelligent, shaped by patience and balance. And now, as everything settles, the focus gently returns. You are here, held in this quiet moment. The ocean rests with the tides, and so do you. Even when water moves, there is a calm beneath it, a depth where nothing is rushed and nothing is strained. The same is true for the body. Beneath surface thoughts, beneath the day's momentum, there is a slower rhythm already in place, steady and reliable. A gentle scientific truth can rest here, offered softly. The human body follows rhythms much like the ocean does, cycles of activity and rest guided by internal clocks, chemistry and light. When stimulation lowers, the nervous system naturally shifts toward repair. Muscles soften, breathing deepens, the heart finds a quieter pace. This is not something you have to control. It is something that happens when conditions allow. As you lie here, you might notice small signals of that shift. The weight of the body feels heavier yet supported. The edges of thought feel less defined. Sounds fade into the background. The breath moves without instruction, slow and even. A soft reassurance drifts in, like a familiar tide. You can let this happen. The ocean never resists its tides. It doesn't hurry them or hold them back. It rises and falls in response to forces far larger than itself, trusting the rhythm because it has always been there. Night after night, century after century, your body carries that same trust. Cells repair themselves without being asked. Memories sort and settle. Energy redistributes quietly. Even now, systems are shifting toward balance, guided by patterns older than thought. Another reassurance settles gently. Nothing is required of you. If wakefulness still lingers, it does so gently, like a ripple on an otherwise calm surface. There is no need to push it away. The ocean does not erase motion, it absorbs it. Over time, ripples flatten, movement spreads out until it becomes stillness again. The same can happen here. You might imagine the tide at night. The water slides forward, then retreats, leaving the shore smooth and cool. Grains of sand rearrange themselves, sharp edges soften. The beach does not need to remember each wave. It simply receives them. Receive, release, receive, release. A sensory detail floats into awareness. The sound of distant water moving, slow and repetitive. The colour of moonlight stretched across dark waves. The feeling of cool air resting lightly on skin. Another reassurance arrives, quiet and kind. You are safe in this rhythm. The ocean also reminds us that rest is not emptiness. Beneath the surface, life continues in low-energy states. Chemistry adjusts, temperature equalizes, balance is maintained. Rest is active in its own quiet way, active without effort. As attention drifts, thoughts may become fragmented, less linear. Images rise and fade without meaning. This is the mind loosening its grip, much like the body does as it sinks into water. There's no need to follow any thought to its end. Let them drift. The tides continue whether they are observed or not. They do not depend on awareness. They move because the system exists. Your body, too, knows how to rest whether you watch it or not. Another reassurance settles softly. You can trust this. The ocean's calm intelligence has been carrying this moment all along. From the first warmth absorbed at the surface, to the deepest layers holding memory, to the quiet night where movement slows. All of it points toward the same truth. Nothing here is meant to hurry. Nothing here is meant to strain. If you're still here, your body already knows what peace feels like. That knowledge is not learned tonight. It is remembered. It has lived in breath, in heartbeat, in the way muscles soften when allowed. The ocean simply reflected it back. As the final moments arrive, the imagery grows simpler still. Just water, just rhythm, just the sense of being held by something vast and patient. There is gratitude in this space for the quiet, for the shared stillness, for the gentle science that reminds us we belong to systems designed for balance, not pressure. Thank you for sharing this quiet space. Good night.